This is the first part of two-part lecture on Introduction to Politics. Since this is only an introductory lecture to the world of politics, the things that will be discussed here would be only touched upon on the surface, while as in subsequent lectures following these two parts, we would then lay open these topics more in detail. This lecture is going to be interlinked to the lecture 1 of introductory lectures to social sciences, where we try to see why man is a social animal and why he cannot be self-reliant and live all alone by himself. Building upon that, this lecture I have divided into the two parts, as I already said. In the first part of this lecture, we'll be dealing with the question of what makes man a political animal. And in the part 2 of the lecture, we will then expand more on this question of politics, dealing with the different dimensions of politics, and we will then go and deliberate over a very important question, that is, can man be apolitical? So before we dig into this question, let us take and observe a colony of ants who too, like us, are a social animal. Colony of ants. The colony of ants is generally consists of queen, female workers, and male workers. The queen is the egg-laying ant. Capable of reproduction. The female workers, on the other hand, do much of the work in the colony, like digging up the soil, getting the food, feeding the larva, and taking care of the queen. But the female workers can't reproduce. On the other hand, the male workers are not involved in any type of work in the ant colony, but they have only one task, which is to fertilize, fertilize the eggs that is laid by the queen. The eggs that the uh, queen lays down are either fertilized using the sperm of the by the male ants, and or they remain unfertilized. The unfertilized eggs later develop into male ants, while as the fertilized male ants, fertilized eggs, if they get the protein-rich diet, develop into queens, while as the eggs that receive very less diet develop into female workers. Firstly, when the queen is developed through the fertilized eggs and the unfertilized eggs develop into male ants, both these ants are winged, have wings. And when the right conditions appear, both the winged queen as well as the winged male ants fly out of the colony of ants and copulate in the air. After they copulate in the air, the queen and the male ants return to some place, while the queen sheds its wings and the male ant dies afterwards. So as we can clearly see, the functioning and the working of an ant colony seems but natural. And conflict seems to be almost absent from an ant colony. Like a body, where each organ performs its own function, each ant performs the vital functions that are vital for the whole ant colony. Each ant's body, if you see, as we have clearly seen, can just perform the function that results from the nature that it is born with. So we can clearly see that the functioning as well as the organization seems perfectly natural, without anyone dictating the ants what to do and what not to do. Now here's a funny question. Have you ever seen an ant sitting idle by itself or with others? If you go out and observe a colony of ants, you will clearly see that the ants are always on the move, or always on the move. Keep this curious fact about ants in your mind while we now move to our main topic of the discussion, which is What makes man a political animal? Political animal. Aristotle, the famous Greek philosopher, whom we also mentioned in the lecture first of our introductory lectures to social sciences, in his famous book, Politics, says and tries to describe why man is a political animal. But obviously, man is a political animal in a sense in which a bee is not, or any other gregarious animal. Nature, as we say, does nothing without some purpose, and she has endowed man alone among the animals with the power of speech. Speech is something different from voice, which is possessed by other animals also, and used by them to express pain or pleasure. For their nature does indeed enable them not only to feel pleasure and pain, but to communicate these feelings to each other. Speech, on the other hand, serves to indicate what is useful and what is harmful, and so also what is just and unjust. For the real difference between man and other animals is that humans alone have perception of good and evil, just and unjust, as true. So according to Aristotle, what differentiates man from other animals, other gregarious animals, is he possesses the power of speech or language. While I agree with much of what Aristotle has said in the passage, I would like to raise some pertinent questions to the above assumption about what makes man a political animal. You should have seen that if sometimes somebody's hand accidentally touches a hot surface, the hand, without one thinking about whether one should move the hand or not, recoils back, completely instinctual, nervous, carrying the information to the nervous system, and nervous system reacting back on its own. So, can't we say that it is possible that animal behavior can be like that, completely instinctual? When I say I feel the pain, there is someone who is experiencing it. But if, like I have said, we can give a theory of human behavior by saying that in contradictory to what Aristotle has said about animals, that they feel pain and pleasure, we can make the argument that there can be no one in animals who is actually experiencing pain or pleasure. Rather, their behavior is completely instinctual, just like a complete robot. With their nervous system reacting to the inputs that they receive from the surroundings, and the nervous system reacting to it and producing an output or reaction to the surrounding. So, from what we have been saying so far, we can say that there are three assumptions. We can make three assumptions about man. Assumptions about him. That he experiences he possesses language or speech by which he deliberates on what is good and what is bad, what is just and what is unjust, what is truth and what is falsehood. And he possesses the ability of reason, or that man is a thinking being. Now, moving further, we can raise three questions about human existence. How does man experience the world? And himself? What is language? And how does he reason? Thomas Hobbes, the famous English political philosopher, in his book Leviathan, in the introductory pages of it, says the following. But there is another saying of late not understood, by which they might learn truly to read one another, if they would take the pains, and that is nosce ipsum, read thyself. To teach us that for the similitude of thoughts and passions of one man to the thoughts and passions of another, when he does think, opine, reason, hope, fear, and upon what grounds, he shall thereby read and know what are the thoughts and passions of all other men upon the like occasions. So what Hobbes is saying is that the best way to understand the behavior of other humans is to understand oneself. Because when we have understood how we react to in certain circumstances of human life, we will be able to understand how others to react in the circumstances they find themselves in. And I will be doing just that, trying to examine myself. So here goes. I experience the world, but I don't experience the world per se. But what I experience are my experiences about the world. I experience the world but I don't experience it per se. But on the contrary, I experience my experiences of the world. Experience my experiences of the world. And each thought or word represents a particular experience I have something. Represents a particular experience I have of something. Words as such have no meaning. But we just ascribe a sound to a particular experience. Just ascribe a particular sound to an experience. To illustrate this, let us take the example of this color. When we say we experience this color, we have ascribed a particular sound. Say the sound red in English. Or wazul in Kashmiri. Or lal in Urdu, and so on and so forth. Or in case of deaf and dumb persons, there is some particular hand sign that they ascribe to it. So, when I say that, say I am experiencing a table, I am not experiencing the table per se. I am not experiencing the table in itself. But all I am experiencing is my different experiences. Through my visual sense organ, I am experiencing the roughness or the smoothness, the different colors and shades. And through my sensory, that is through my sense of touch, I'm able to feel the roughness or the smoothness, the hardness or softness, whether the table is heavy or light. And through my auditory sense, I'm able to experience, if I try to tap on the table, whether it is sonorous or hollow. And if I try to smell the table, the table might give off a smell of it being either odorless, it having a smell of some chemical, it being pleasant or repugnant, it may having a smell of something metallic, and so forth. And if I try to taste the surface of it, it might come off as something as salty, something as tasteless, something as sour, and etc. And all these experiences that I receive through my sense organs are rounded up in my mind, which produces in me a concept of what a table is. Table is. So my thoughts are nothing but my experiences turned into words, and the words give rise to sentences. And me reasoning about table is the different arrangement of different thoughts into a coherent whole. Since now truth is not something that we experience. But truth is something that we have to reason about and discover. Truth is something we have to reason about and struggle to find it out. Also, since man has a desire for happiness and a good life, and on top of that, he is a social animal who can't live all alone by himself, or that he is not self-reliant, but a social animal. He is bound to live with other human beings. Live with other human beings. To live the good life that he wishes and aspires for. And this gives rise to conflicts. While we might disagree on what truth is, what justice is, what kind of a society do we want to organize ourselves into, or who in the society should have a say in what, who should have a say in what decisions that will affect the society, or what is good, what type of human action should be termed as good, and what types of human action should be termed as bad. There can be disagreements over whether society should be built on conflict or cooperation. Should it be built on coercive power, or should the people be free to live a life as they wish to? And so on and so forth. The number of conflicts that can arise in a society are simply boundless, with no end. And this gives rise and makes man a political animal. Political animal. Unlike ants, as I tried to show, ants are never found to be sitting idle. That is, they are never in the process of thinking, since thinking requires man to stop and start reflecting on things, or staying idle with other ants, since they don't have the power or the capacity of speech, as Aristotle has rightly illustrated or pointed out, to discuss what is good and what is bad, what is just and what is unjust, and what type of good life do the ants want to pursue, and how should they be able to achieve that purpose. To make the point of man being a political animal a little more clear, I would try to illustrate it in two ways. In the first way, I'll be building an argument from one of the arguments that's put forward in favor of monotheism over polytheism. that is the belief in one God or belief in many gods. It is said that if there were many gods, one God would say the sun should rise from the east, another would argue it should rise from the west, another God would say the sun should be stationary in the sky, and so on and so forth. Since every God would be as powerful as the other gods, there would never be consensus on how the sun should rise or how it should be. Gods would be warred with each other, and there wouldn't be any laws governing the universe, or no universe in the first place. God, by definition, we can argue, is someone who is a conscious being with free will, and there can be no one like him. Like God, as many religious scriptures point out, man was created in the image of God, or his representative on earth. And each man, we can say, is a God in himself. With the capacity of self-consciousness, free will, and power. Unlike nature, which is run by God, we can say, the social world or society where men are like mini gods in themselves are bound to produce conflict, disagreement as how we humans ought to live. Another way to expound this idea is that I will read out a passage from one of my novels, and the passage goes as: Here I am in my room, free to do what I wish to do. I can sing any anthem, I can hoist any flag, I can choose to be of any religion, I can speak about anything as freely as possible. I can choose to be an atheist if I want, I can be a blasphemer, I can wear any clothes or not wear anything at all, I can read any book, I can write anything, I can paint anything, I can sing anything. But what would happen if the news of what I am doing in my room gets out? What if it reached to someone else's ears? What if the news reached to those in power? What would happen? I imagine people bringing down the door to my room. I imagine myself being arrested, put into some jail, made to appear before a court, exiled, lynched, maybe executed, most probably, assassinated. I imagine the consequences of my actions in all possible ways. I am free when I am alone. I am free when there is no one else other than me. But all that freedom dies with the appearance of another man. So I hope that this lecture I was able to show what makes man a political animal. And in the part 2 of the lecture, we will be able to expound on this idea and discuss a little more on politics and the different dimensions of what politics is, and the question of can man be apolitical. I will be concluding this lecture by reading out some questions that we can think about on your own. The question number 1 is, can a good life be lived in a bad society? Second question, can a good society be created without us deliberating on what is the purpose of human life? Third question, what is religion and what role should it play in the organization of the society? With this, I take adieu and hope to meet you in the part 2 of this lecture on Introduction to Politics.